Welcome to Stories of Brisco and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw, and that would be your Chickasaw native, your Chickasaw Hall of Famer, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco. And we've got one of the greatest workers, one of the greatest legends, one of the greatest characters. He's in every single Hall of Fame there is. Starcade 83, the dog collar match, WrestleMania 1, he was there. He is Mr. Greg Valentine, the Hammer, and he's with us. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that intro.
Well, Greg, we've been tracking you down, and I had your number. I had everything right except the area code. You moved out to Las Vegas on it. That's where you're doing the show from. So we appreciate your time out there. I know it's earlier than usual for you to do these kind of things, but we really appreciate it. And I've always had this bone to pick with you. And now we're public, I can pick it with you. A dog collar match. Well, John mentioned a dog collar match. Man, I brought up one time when you and Piper were going through that fantastic program there at Mid Atlantic. Jack and I had turned heels there against Ricky and Jay, Steamboat, Youngboat, as I called them there. And you were laid out for a night or two. Jimmy called me and he said, "I need you to take Greg's place tonight." I had one of those rare nights off in the Carolinas. And I said, sure, because it was going to be a good payday. So I went up there not knowing what I was doing, but I got up there, and as soon as I got in the dressing room, they handed me a dog collar. And I said, what's this? It's a dog collar. You're going to take his place at a dog collar match. Oh, shit. Piper beat the crap out of me, and I owe that all to you, man. He beat the crap out of me, that dog collar. That was such a brutal match with you and Hot Rod there. But,
So you
you
took
know,
my place on one of the dog
on
collar
one,
shows?
on one event, I had to take your place there, and I
Okay.
refused to do it anymore. It wasn't a Starcade or anything like that, obviously, because you were there. But you didn't give me the real big payoff. I just got one of those other towns like a Greenville or something like that.
Well, that's the first time I heard about that. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I was in transition. I was getting ready to go up to New York. So
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, John and I talk about that Starcade card so many times. I think we've counted 13 Hall of Fame, WWE Future Hall of Fames on that Starcade card. Man, what a production that thing was. And we've talked, like it could have been so much better if Jimmy would have had the infrastructure at the time to make it what he originally said it was going to be, but he didn't have the know-how and he didn't have the people to help him do that. You remember all that stuff going into it?
Oh yeah. It was the first pay-per-view I think ever, and we didn't go to homes or anything, but we went to all the different theaters and stuff in the Carolinas, I believe.
Right.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's the
Greg,
way they did it back
did
then.
you know, did you know how big a deal it was at the time? Because after that, Vince just kind of poached the talent from it because the show was that good. And
Yeah.
like Jerry said, 13 WWE Hall of Famers came out of that card. Did you know how good it was at the time?
Uh, I not really, no. I didn't know how big WrestleMania 1 was going to be. You
Yeah.
just and they still say WrestleMania 1, they just broke even. George Scott was the booker back then. Oh, they just broke even, but after that, of course, they made a ton of money. But Starcade was the first. It was the first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you look around and you think back in those dressing rooms, man, we were just loaded with talent, Mid Atlantic. Jimmy did such a good job, in those days of putting talent together. He had all the top guys. Like we say, keep saying 13 guys that would eventually become Hall of Fame. So the card was just loaded from top to bottom, and it really fit in.
Yes. Yeah, you guys were in a tag match or something, weren't you?
With with
Against
with
Youngblood and Steamboat.
Steamboat and Youngblood, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then the other was Rick against Harley, I
Harley, yeah,
believe.
yeah, yeah. That was the three top
Me
matches
against
there.
Piper, and then there was some other stuff, but
Yeah, yeah,
that was the three top matches.
yeah.
Hey, Greg, what were your thoughts at that time? Because it was such a cool time in wrestling history. You know, Crockett has this great 1983 Starcast, which is legendary. People still talk about it. Then you go to WrestleMania 1, which also is the beginning of all this WrestleMania. What were your thoughts at the time? Did you know the competition going on? Did you choose the side of Vince McMahon, or were you just kind of going where you thought your opportunities were at the time?
Well, I've been up in New York a couple times. I first time I went to New York was 1979. Then I came back in 81 or 82, and the old Vince, the old man I called him, he senior, he kept telling me when he wanted me to come back and all that. So I was booked to come back after Starcade 83. I was booked to come back to New York, and that's what I did. And of course, the booker at the time was George Scott for Crockett. Then he went up to New York, and so it's kind of like the perfect storm for me. I have my booker, and I'm back in New York in 1985 for WrestleMania 1. So I uh, I realized what a big deal it all was. I did, yeah.
Greg, what was the difference in your vision, the build up to WrestleMania 1 opposed to our build up into Carolinas to Starcade 2? Was it just the enormity of the celebrities in New York City, or how did you feel about it? What did you see when they were building this up? Did you think, man, this is something?
Yeah, I did. Because they were all over the New York media, New York, the big city, and they had all Hogan and Mr. T and everything were doing all these different television shows, and it was a big deal because it was New York City compared to Greensboro or Charlotte. I'm not knocking that because Starcade 83 was the beginning, but New York City, I mean, wow,
Yeah.
Hogan was on everything, every show, and then I was on some of the stuff too. Uh, they'd have Saturday after the Saturday. What was Saturday's?
Saturday night
What?
Saturday
main
night main
event.
event.
Not it wasn't Saturday night's main event. It was Saturday,
Saturday
whatever it
night
was.
shotgun Saturday night, I think it was something
No,
like
Yeah,
Jail.
yeah, yeah. And we did a bunch of promos for that. So, no, it was huge. It was
that.
huge.
And at the time, what did you think about all those celebrities? Because some guys were against it, some guys were for it, some guys, oh, Vince McMahon is ruining the business, he's gonna kill it, he's gonna kill it. What were you thinking at the time?
Oh, I loved it. I got to meet Muhammad Ali. I got to meet Billy Martin for the Yankees. I was a big baseball fan, and I didn't meet Liberace. Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was huge. And Cindy Loeffler, and you know, it was great. It was great.
How was Mr. T in your view at the time? I know there were some guys that didn't really get along with T, Piper being one of them. What was your relationship
Well,
with T?
someone introduced me to him, and he just went "Ugh," like that. Fuck him.
Okay, enough there. What we
Piper didn't
got?
like him at all, did he?
Oh, jeez. No, and they ended up having, I guess it was WrestleMania 2, or yeah, it was WrestleMania 2
Yeah,
where they had it in three different places, right?
Yeah.
right.
And, and
That was true. Yeah.
yeah, and then Piper fought Mr. T in some kind of boxing match. Was that it? Yeah.
That was it,
And it
yeah.
was, uh, and they were throwing some potatoes back and forth because
Wow.
Piper knew how to box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think actually Piper won a Golden Glove up in Canada. Maybe Canada doesn't count.
No.
Maybe a third, maybe a two-thirds, who knows?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. So Greg, we started off here with the two highlights. there are very few guys left that highlighted both Starcade '83 and WrestleMania 1, and you're one of them there. But take us through the beginning. I mean, your dad Johnny Valentine, one of the all-time legend greats there, and you used to travel with him when you were a kid there. How was the business when growing up? How did you see the business there? Was it something you always wanted to do?
No, actually, I didn't grow up with my father. I grew up with my grandparents in Longview, Washington,
Oh,
and his sister lived in Seattle or Renton, not Renton, excuse me, Bothell. People don't know where that's at, but it was a suburb of Seattle. So I used to go back and forth, and then finally, I wanted to be a disc jockey, radio disc jockey, because I loved rock and roll, and I listened to the radio all the time. And back then, of course, it was AM radio, and I loved it. And I actually started going to Columbia School of Broadcasting in Portland, Oregon. And my dad called me out of the blue. Now, I didn't grow up with my dad, and I just saw him a few times when I was growing up.
Did you realize who he was, Greg? I mean,
Oh
seeing
yeah,
on TV.
because out in Washington State, we got Texas Championship Wrestling on television, and I would see him on those shows. Right, the only other kind of wrestling we got was from Portland, Oregon, and Tony Bourne and all that. I mean, it was good wrestling, but compared to what I saw in Texas and when I saw my dad, I said, "Oh my God, how he beat the hell out of everybody," and him and Fritz and everybody, and it came out of Texas. So he called me up just out of the blue, and he wanted me to come to Dallas and come down and see him. So that's what started. And I flew into Love Field back then. That was probably the only airport they had in Dallas back then, and he was there, and he came to see me with his girlfriend, not his wife. And he took me to he lived in a manor house downtown Dallas, beautiful apartment he had there. And Nancy, his wife, who he had 3 more children with, a couple of the daughters were there, but she was in Mexico. She always went to Mexico all the time. So he brought me in, and I went on the road with him, and it was fantastic. He used to play ribs on me. Like in the morning, I'd be laying there sleeping, and he'd take he'd fill up a wastebasket and throw a bunch of water on me in bed. And then I would go, I'm sorry, Johnny, my father, but I have to tell this story. He's up there in heaven listening right now. So I went into the bathroom to take a pee, and he had shit all over the toilet. I mean, it was like not just on the seat, it was everywhere. And I threw up because it was so friggin' disgusting. And you could hear my dad going, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." And I threw up like 2 or 3 times, And, oh my God. So the next night we end up staying some other hotel, and he had oh God. He threw water on me. I mean, this was going on all the time, all the time. But I enjoyed watching him wrestle. I watched him wrestle Killer Carl Cox. I watched him wrestle Fritz, Jose Lothario, Mil Mascaras. Well, what a match that was! And so I was on the road with him in Texas there, Dallas, Fort Worth, Waco, Austin, San Antonio. And I got to tell you the story about Joe Blanchard. So I don't know what happened. We were drinking somewhere, and I said something to Joe that pissed him off, and I don't know. I told him I didn't think he was that tough. He beat the fuck out of me, and my dad is yelling in the back, "Hit him, Joe! Hit him, Joe!" And I got a few punches in, but I was no fighter like Joe Blanchard.
How old are you at that time, Greg, when you're making this tour?
19, 18, 19, something
okay.
like that.
So you were out of school then, and were you good size? Were you good size at that time there?
Yeah, because I lifted weights in high school and stuff. So yeah, I was 200 pounds, probably 190 pounds. I remember that now. 190 pounds. So, but Joe beat me up pretty good, but I got a couple punches in on him. So, my dad, I remember my dad in the back, beat him up, Joe, beat him up. Fuck. But you got to learn those mess. I said that, I don't know why I said it to Joe Blanchard because he didn't have a good body or anything. And I said, well, you don't look that tough. Well, I'm glad he beat me up.
Yeah,
made me
Joe
tougher
was a hell of an athlete, as you know. I mean, he was All-American
He's a good
football player,
right?
All-American wrestler, All-American football player at Kansas University, I believe it was. So
Yeah, if I'd known that. If I'd known that, I never would have said anything like that. But, and my dad in the back, beat him up, Joe, beat him up.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, I stayed about 3 months with my father. It was in Texas, and it was really friggin' hot. And yeah, he took me. He says we're going to go to. We wrestled somewhere. It was right on the border, and we crossed over to Madame Mortis or something, whatever was the name of that town. Right on the border there, huh?
Probably El Paso, Laredo, one of those two there.
No, I don't think it was that one. Madame Mortis, is there a town
Madame Mortis, Mexico? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we went there.
Hidalgo, John, is that Hidalgo across the street?
It could be Hidalgo. Yeah, it's in the Big Bend area down that way.
Yeah. Okay, so he took me down to Mexico, and he took me to a whorehouse. Is it okay to talk this way?
Well, yeah, you bet. You're great, Valentine. We can talk any way you want.
Yes.
So, I wasn't still a virgin at this time, but I remember he took me down to Madame Mortis, I think that's how you pronounce it, and it took me to a whorehouse, and he bought me a whore, some little young pretty girl, and I went back and went back to her room or whatever, and then he's in the bar or whatever, he's drinking and he's waiting for me to come out, and I finally emerged from the room, and I came in. He goes, "What the hell took you so long?" Now he's drunk. He'd been drinking a bunch of beer and shit. And he paid for my little session there. So we got in the car, and he says, "You're driving." So we're way down there, and I'm not drunk, but I'm tired as hell. But he's drunk. He just got in the back and went to sleep. I didn't, I don't know how it was like a 6-hour trip all the way back to Dallas, but I found the manor house where he was living, and I pulled into the garage where the manor house was, and he was in the back seat sleeping, and I opened the door, and he just fell out on the ground. He was, and the guy at parts your car, he's laughing. He goes, "Wow!" And he fell out on he finally woke up. He goes, "Holy shit!" So we went up to to his apartment, and that was the end of that.
And at that moment there, you said, "I want to be a pro wrestler."
Oh yeah. Well, I watched him. So I watched him wrestle for 3 months,
Mhm.
wrestle Fritz and Wahoo and all these different guys. And, I'd watch some of the other matches and I wasn't too impressed. I mean, some of them were okay, but like Kozak brothers and stuff like that. But oh my God, I'd see him get in there and I was a believer. I look all this stuff. He'd fall down in front of me and at the edge of the ring, and he'd have his tongue hanging out and be turning purple, and so he made me a believer. I mean, I saw him in the dressing room and I see him talking and stuff, but I go, man, man, oh man. But I still wanted to be a wrestler, so he arranged for me to go to Calgary and train with Stu Hart. So that's what happened. And he sent me up there, and it was cold as hell in Calgary. I think it was around March or something, and I met Fritz and not Fritz, excuse me, Stu. And Stu picked me up at the airport, and it was freezing cold, and he's out there with a t-shirt. And he's walking around with thongs on. I didn't even have a coat, I don't think. I was freezing. And he sent me up there with no boots, no wrestling boots. So there was an old timer up there named Dave Rule. And and he had a snake on the boots, on the side of the boots. So those were my first shoes. And they started training me. I don't remember who was training me. Well, no, I trained in Stu's basement. That's where it was. He had this old nasty mat. And before I got my boots, I would wrestle on that mat barefoot. And I got this horrible infection on my feet
Wow.
called impetigo.
Yeah.
And oh my God, my feet were, he told everybody, he says, Johnny Valentine, he sent him up here with rotten feet, like that. But I got my rotten feet off his rotten mat that he never cleaned or anything. And his dad would come out. He had a little room downstairs watching us, and Stu would say, "Get back in there, you old fart." You call him an old fart. Get back in there. So, so I eventually go to the hospital, and they had to scrape my feet and get all that impetigo, a nasty infection out of there, and then they put cotton around in between my toes, and I was laid up for about 4 days in that horrible hotel called the Calgarian in downtown Calgary. Oh, it was terrible. So so I finally I got healed up. It took a while, but
So
then
Stu's dad had a room down in the basement, off the basement.
that's where Stu had his father down there.
Wow. I had a damn
And
the closet.
and he says, no, it's like a little room that they built for him. Yes. And so he would yell at him, "Get back in your room. Get back in your room."
Yeah. Was Stu still at that time going on the mat with guys and trying to stretch them, trying to hurt them, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he didn't stretch me, but he was
Well, hell,
no,
you just go Broadway with Joe Blanchard. He heard already.
yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. All right. What can I do for you, dear? All right.
Hey, Julie.
They said hi to you, honey. Okay. Moving
Okay.
on.
Was
Oh,
Stu's dad involved in the wrestling at all in any way?
Stu's dad?
Yeah, was his dad involved at all? Or was he just had a
No,
room there?
no, 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 he wasn't.
so how long did you stay up there, and who did you have your first match with there?
Oh man, I'm trying to remember. Um, trying to remember. Can you guys see me all right?
Yeah.
I try to remember. I can't remember. I can't remember
Okay.
my. I did have a match with uh uh. I think I had a match with Angelo Mosca,
Angelo, wow. Big guy, big Angelo. So I
and
read
so I
also
had worked King Kong Mosca.
King
So
Kong
I
Mafia.
had a match with him, and I did like 3 arm drags, and then he crushed me. He took 3 arm drags for me, and then he crushed me. And the match lasted about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then I went out on the road. So that was on television, actually. That one was. So, but then I went out on the road and I worked with different guys. I can't remember, but I remember Angelo Mosca. And Carlos Colon, I worked with him. He was called Bella Harry Belafonte or something before he became Carlos Colon.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I remember that. I remember that. I always thought it was strange. Here's this island boy all the way up in Canada in an iceberg coming from an island where it's nice and warm going up to an iceberg in Calgary up there. I never understood that deal.
Yeah.
But Carlos became a big star up there too, did he? Greg, I read on the internet, and if it's in the internet, it's got to be true. But
Oh, yeah.
did the Sheik have anything to do with you breaking into business?
Yeah. Okay. So I was just getting to that. I remember calling my dad up and said, I
I
can't
get
take,
it.
I can't take it anymore, Dad. Get me out of here. Because they had me refereeing and shit. And I ain't going
Yeah.
to be no fucking referee. So he sent me to Eddie Farhat, the original Sheik. And I actually lived in the Sheik's basement for about a month. I was down there with his retarded son. No, he wasn't retarded, but we both lived down there in the basement. And so he had this big ring in the backyard, but I never went out there and never trained with anybody. Uh, I mean, what's the Sheik going to show me how to take a pencil out of your pants and
Yeah.
stick it in the guy's throat or something? Or
Yeah.
so he didn't train me any, but I did stay at his place, and I went out. I had my boots, and I started working, just ad libbing it, just going right into the ring and working with different people. I worked with Bobo Brazil. I actually traveled with Bobo Brazil. Uh, I it was it was a good experience. I went down there. I worked with Freddie Curry, Bull Curry's son.
Well, Bill Curry,
So
yeah.
I actually, I learned how to wrestle. Learn how to wrestle just ad libbing it. I think that's by watching all these guys wrestle all these years and stuff. You just you see yourself in there, and you just kind of you ad lib it, and you learn how to work.
During this time, Greg, were you getting any feedback from your dad, or was your dad just letting you work and learning the business on your own?
Well, he didn't see me. He didn't actually see me wrestle. I
Yeah.
think a couple times he saw me somewhere, maybe on Sheik's television out of coming out of Detroit or something. But the only thing he told me is don't flop around, and when you fall down, don't fall backwards, fall forward. If you're going to sell a punch, fall forward. Don't don't fall backwards, and don't flop around. Just stand in there. That's a few things he told me. So, can you
Well,
guys see me
you
okay?
learned that well, by the way.
Can you guys see me okay?
Yes, sir.
We can,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Good.
Did like Skandor Akbar? I broke in Dallas, and he always told me, Johnny Valentine. He looked idolized your dad. A lot of people did for good reason, and said
Sandor Akbar, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Skander used to always say, Johnny Valentine used to say, I can't make you believe the rest of the card. I can make you believe me. And people always have said that about Johnny. Was that something that you knew at the time? Because you talked about when you watched your dad, you realized that his matches looked different than everybody else's.
Well, Roddy Piper told me that story. He met my dad in Houston, and and my dad told him that same story, that I can't make them believe all the other matches or thing, but they're going to believe my matches and going to believe I'm for real. So he told that to Piper. Piper told me about that a long time ago. So yeah,
Yeah, that was kind of Greg. That was kind of the mantra of all us guys in that age group. Was a Valentine. I was saying, always control what you can control yourself out there. Don't worry about what the other guys are doing. Just go out
right,
there and convince people that you know what you're doing out there. So he was a huge influence on our business, as you know, and on the industry. And Johnny, I had the privilege of going probably 30-hour Broadways with him in the Carolinas at one time. And I learned so much just being in the ring with him, just watching him approach the ring, watching his
right.
reaction once he got in the ring. Quite a man. So
Yeah,
And
that's for
was it,
sure.
was it from there that you end up going down to Texas and end up in Amarillo and then working for Fritz?
No, so what happened after that? So I'm in the Detroit territory. We're all over Ohio and Michigan, and ran into Don Fargo, and he I guess he fell in love with me, my look and everything, and he asked the Sheik if uh if Greg, could he have Greg, and he wanted to take me to Buffalo, New York, for Pedro Martinez. So I changed my name to Johnny Fargo. So then we went as the Fargo brothers, and talk about one crazy motherfucker, Don Fargo. My God.
oh yeah.
Oh, but he had his girlfriend with him. He had a wife somewhere in Indianapolis, a bunch of kids, but he had his girlfriend with him. I forget her name, but it wasn't important. But we went off to Buffalo, New York. We wrestled Buffalo and with Cleveland and Rochester, Utica, Albany, New York, uh, Binghamton, New York, and we became the Fargo brothers. So I was Johnny Fargo. I like that name of Johnny because, like Johnny Valentine, but I was Johnny Fargo, Donnie Fargo, and we wrestled against Tony Parisi, Dominic DeNucci. Uh, they were the tag team champions, and then we took the belts off of them, so we became the. It was called the NWF, so we became the National Wrestling Federation World Tag Team Champions. We had those for a while, and so it was all good. I learned a lot from Don Fargo. I learned how to do tag team wrestling, like he would take a slam, I would run in and take a slam, and all that tag team shit. And finally, we left and we went to Amarillo. So that's where we went to Amarillo and worked for the Funks, Dory Funk Sr., and that's where I met Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr., and we stayed there for a while. We ended up getting in a big fight against each other, and so I split up from him, and I went and worked in Dallas for Fritz, and I wrestled as not Johnny Fargo. I wrestled as Johnny Valentine Jr. My dad didn't like that, so they switched me to using my real name, Greg, and I became Greg Valentine. I didn't last too long in Dallas, but I went, where did I go from Dallas? I went to, I think I went to Oklahoma. Could be Oklahoma, or I can't really remember.
Or
Oh,
Portland? Was
no,
it
I didn't go.
Portland, maybe?
I was all over the place, but I think from Dallas, I went to I went to Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, I didn't last too long. Barnett sent me down to Florida, which was fantastic. I was Florida in 1974. Dusty Rhodes had it on fire down there, and that's where
Yeah, that's when
first met.
Dusty first turned babyface down there, became the American Dream in '74.
Yeah, and so that's when I came in there. That's
Yeah,
when I first met you,
right.
and I remember running into Jack, your brother, and I told him how depressed I was in Buffalo, so he arranged for me to come to Florida too. So
Uh-huh.
it's I can't remember all this, but I went to Texas first, then I either came back to Buffalo, ran into Jack in Toronto. I think that's where it was.
Probably,
And he
yeah.
says, I'll get you booked in Florida. So I came to Florida, and I love Florida, of course. And it was the first time I'd ever been to Florida.
Yeah, I
And
want to throw a story. I want to throw a story in there for John. That's when we first met, as you mentioned a little bit earlier. We first met in '74 in Florida. I'd come down and I'd left Carolina and I was coming down. I was going to get a little push over. They put me with Buddy Colt the first night, and I went in the ring in Miami. Went to put the figure four on, and the mat cover kind of stayed with me. And I twisted my knee real bad. And the doctor told me I couldn't work for like 8 weeks. I was all depressed and didn't have anything. And you brought me a bag of smoke over to me. I never will forget that. It cheered me up. You became immediately my best friend, man. I always remember it. I
I
think I've
brought it
thanked
over
you. Yeah, I
to
think
your
I've thanked you
apartment,
a
right?
hundred. Yeah, I think I've thanked you 100 times for it, man. But
You know where I
I,
got the pot? I got the pot from Morocco,
well,
down in
Morocco.
Morocco.
No
So I
wonder it's so damn good, man.
so I brought so he sold me a big friggin' bag for nothing hardly. $100 for this big huge bag, and I brought you
Yeah,
part of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So was Morocco the hookup?
I don't know where he got it, but
Yeah.
you know how those Hawaiians are. You know,
Yeah,
it was some good shit. It's some real good
yeah,
shit.
yeah. So we became friends instantly, John. After that, forever, man. We're bonded
Yeah,
forever. That's
yeah.
over 50. That's 50 years ago. Wow,
How long ago?
50 years ago, man.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, we can even remember that,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Florida, you had a nice little run down here. You worked with everybody down here, but then you take off. I think you go to LA, where it was really your first big singles explosion out in LA, right?
Yeah, well, Louis Tillett was in, remember him, right?
Oh yeah,
He
one
was,
of the best bookers in the world. A guy gets short shade when they talk about great bookers. Louis was one of them. I always thought.
yeah, well, he got a job with Mike LaBelle out there in LA. So he brought me out there and the Hollywood Blondes and Humperdinck and all of us.
Mm.
And we all left, went to Los Angeles, and my mother lived out there. She lived in North Hollywood or somewhere out there. So uh, my wife Kathy was pregnant at the time, but I flew her out there. She wasn't that pregnant, but she was, you know, she wasn't even showing yet. So she flew out there and got me hooked up at an apartment out there, and I had this old Buick Riviera that I bought from Brian Blair. And I drove it all the way across from Tampa to LA. Oh my God. This guy gave me this trucker or something. I stopped at some truck stop, and he gave me a pill, and he goes, "This will keep you awake." So I took this pill along with the pot. I drove nonstop. I drove from Tampa all the way to El Paso without stopping. And then I ran into, I pulled into the Holiday Inn, and a bunch of wrestlers were there. They just had a show. in El Paso, and I couldn't, I was still wired. I couldn't go to sleep. So I ended up driving all the way to Phoenix. I hadn't been to sleep at all. Just this
Wow.
one little pill, I believe they called them Black Beauties.
Black Beauty, yeah.
I had this one little pill. And finally I got to Phoenix and I checked in and I called my wife and said, my wife at the time was only something flashed up on my screen. Okay, so I checked into the hotel, told her I was on my way. I'm in Phoenix. I'm going to sleep. So I laid down and I think I slept 20 hours. I woke up and go, where in the hell am I? And I called her up. She go, well, I'm worried about you. I'm calling your room and you're not answering. And I said, I'm on my way. So I ended up driving to LA and to my mom's house. And they lived in North Hollywood. I think I already mentioned that. And so I started my what is this thing? Only the host can share in this meeting. I'll just push OK. Keeps flashing up. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I started my career there in LA and met Mike LaBelle, Gene LaBelle, and I had a pretty good run there, and they actually put the America's belt on me out there. And so it all worked good. I think I started. No, I didn't start using the figure four till later on, but I was in Los Angeles for quite a while, at least a year.
And was Piper out there? Was Piper and Guerrero and that group out there also?
Guerrero was, but Piper came in after I left.
After you left,
Right after I left, Piper came in. So I was in Los Angeles about a year, and then with the Hollywood Blondes, and then that's when everybody decided to leave LA. So
you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys set that territory on fire. I mean, you guys were drawing like gangbusters out there, right?
we did really good. We were on Channel 9 there, and we were on two different stations, Channel 13, Channel 9. We wrestled in Bakersfield. We wrestled out there in San Diego and all of San Bernardino and Ventura. It was like we only had one day off a week. And then we did several different TV shows, Channel 13 television. We actually did it in a studio. And so we did a lot of TV, got a lot of chance to learn my craft and doing interviews and stuff. But then we all decided to leave. So we went to Bill Watts in Oklahoma. So I moved to Shreveport, moved my wife out there, and then Shreveport, Louisiana. Yeah. So that was kind of the center of the territory. The Hollywood Blondes came with me, and then I worked with Bill Watts. I think I lasted about 8 months, and I told him I couldn't take it anymore. The trips are too long. So I got myself booked in Atlanta. That didn't last very long. I ended up back in Florida, which was good. Jim Barnett brought me in there, but he really didn't have a place for me. So I went back to Florida, and I loved Florida. So that worked out good. So I'm in Florida, back in Florida, and my dad has this plane crash on the way to Wilmington, North Carolina, and that was terrible. Wahoo pulled him out of I remember my dad telling me a story. He was up in front. The pilot's head went through the windshield. They missed the runway just by because he ran out of gas. All the gas, I guess they put the gasoline in the wings, and he restarted it, and he's going down. He said, "We're going down." And so they went down, and they hit a crossways. They hit a just in front of the apron to go into the runway in Wilmington, North Carolina. They hit this railroad track crossways. So it come a screeching halt. And all the chairs in the back of the airplane, they came and hit the pilot. His head goes through the windshield. My dad's head, no, his head didn't go through the windshield, but all the guys the chairs broke loose. They hit him in the back. That broke his back at about 3 different places. And then, so all my dad could remember was he couldn't feel the pain because it was all shock. He could smell gas. And he says, "Oh, I'm gonna burn to death." So all of a sudden there's Wahoo. And he pulls my dad out, got him out, took him to the hospital. David Crockett's in there. There was that football player, Bobby Bruggers. He was in there.
Bobby Bruggers. I remember Bobby, yeah.
So they all survived. David Crockett, of course, survived. Nobody died except the pilot. He didn't die instantly, but his head went through the windshield. He was toast, So they took Wahoo pulled my dad out, not knowing that his back was broken in 3 or 4 places. They got him to the hospital in Wilmington, North Carolina there. And, he was paralyzed after that from the waist down. Horrible. So I remember Jimmy Crockett was there, and that's when they actually brought me in because my dad was horsed up, and so they brought me in to the Carolinas. That was really my first big break, and they had me come in, and I guess Johnny Weaver was a big-time beloved star there in North Carolina. And in Greensboro, I jumped off the top rope and dropped my elbow on his neck, and then they carried him out. So that pretty much got me on my way there. Then they tagged me up with Flair, and the rest was history right there in Charlotte. So,
yeah.
And when did you first develop the figure 4? Was it right about this time?
No. When I remember George Scott calls me in and he goes, "I'm going to send you to New York." I'd already bought a house and I was happy there. I didn't want to go to New York. But he says, "No, we're going to send you to New York. You're going to go up there and then you can come back later." Because they needed some heels up there, or talent, period. So I went up, and I'm still in Charlotte, still got my house there, but I'm flying up every 3 weeks and doing TV in Allentown and Hamburg. And finally, Vince Sr. comes up to me and he goes, or not finally, but when I first got there, he goes, I'd already went out and my finish was a backward suplex and I dropped the elbow. So he comes up to me and he goes, "We need to give you a hold." She goes, "How about the figure 4 leg lock?" I says, "Well, I don't know. I know about that hold, but I don't know how to use it." And so I learned how to use it from the guys in the dressing room. And I started going out and putting a figure 4 on all my opponents. And I'd go out there and attack them and beat them up, put the figure 4 on, and then they'd stretcher them out. And this went on. Then I'd fly back to Carolinas, and I flew back in 3 weeks later and did more figure 4s and stretchered more people out. So they got that figure 4 leg lock over. And so I was on my way. The first match I ever had was I went into Madison Square Garden after all this. They're watching all this, the fans and everything are watching me figure four everybody and everybody being carried out on a stretcher. So I wrestled Bob Backlund, world champion at the time. That was my first match in the Garden. I was all worried about it. I'm driving up and I called Vince and he was in Florida. Don't worry about it because it's snowing like crazy. And I didn't even know if I was going to make it, but I did make it. And he said, don't worry about it. He goes, it's already sold out. So I went in there and wrestled Bob Backlund. And I think we went an hour Broadway.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that hour Broadway, Greg. That had to be, and for New York, had to be the longest match at the time that they'd had up there. And Backlund, of course, is the perfect opponent for it there. Did you recall how many hour Broadways they'd had or anything like that? Was that one of the first?
Well, I think we were the first one, like you said.
I do too. I think it was too, from honest.
So that's what they told me. They said, well, it's never been done there before. And it'll be really good for you. And so I wrestled Bob Backlund. He was not an easy guy to wrestle. Oh my God. Because he was a shooter and but actually after about 20 minutes, he got tired. And thank God he got tired. So then I could actually hold him down and make him sell. So we did an hour-long match, and it worked out really good for me. And they didn't hold the belt up or nothing, but later on I came back. I think I went back to Carolinas, then I came back again, and then we held the belt up. We did a double pin, and they gave me the belt. And I walked out with the belt and got pictures taken with it. But they came and got the belt away from me, and they held the belt up for about a month. So, but I worked a lot with Bob Backlund. It wasn't easy, though.
Yeah.
And when there's two things that I'm getting the timeline a little bit wrong. You got met up with married to Grand Wizard, and also when you broke Wahoo's leg. What was the time frame of both?
Okay, so after I did my first run with Bob Backlund, I went back to Carolinas, and I think I went back and Flair had turned babyface. So I wrestled. Here's what it's hard to remember all this, but it was me and Flair against the Andersons, and I came back in. I was a heel, but Flair was babyface, and we did an interview where he asked me to come in and be his partner. We did that interview on television. So what happened was he's in trouble, and they're beating the hell out of him, and he's trying to tag me, and I won't tag myself in, and they're dragging him back and forth, and so finally I come in, and Gene Anderson. So it was Snuka, because Gene was he couldn't wrestle anymore. So it was Ole and it was Snuka that we were wrestling. So he threw me to Kane, and they go, break it over his nose. So they got Flair hanging down there in the corner. So I come up. Now he'd already got some juice, and he's bleeding all over the place. So he says, break that cane. So I got the cane. It was a hickory cane, and I come and I hit Flair on the forehead, but the cane don't break. He says, you got to break that cane. So it was a hickory cane. That's really hard thing to break, right? So I came back again on Flair, and it slid right down because he's already had blood all over his forehead. It slid right down, and I broke his nose for real.
Wow.
But the cane still wouldn't break. So I threw the cane. And Flair screaming at me, you motherfucker, or whatever he said. Oh, he says, you're killing me. So I felt really, really bad. I drove back home, and this was before cell phones. And so I got back home and called Flair, and he was laughing about it. Yeah, you broke my nose, but he goes, I'll be okay, you know. And so then we did some big money, me wrestling Flair, and he had the he had a guard on his nose. I got to turn my car up. It's starting to get warm here.
Oh, wow.
No, it's okay. So he said, "Oh, it's okay, man. We're gonna make lots of money." So I didn't wrestle him for a while, but then when I did wrestle him, he had that nose guard. So it made it real easy. All I did was I'd come out and wrestle him, and he'd beat me up for a while, and then I'd grab that nose guard and tear it off his face and go for his nose. So had a run with Flair for a while. So then I go back to New York, and that's where I broke Chief Jay Strongbow's leg. So had the figure 4 up there, broke Chief Strongbow's leg, did that run there. Then I come back to the Carolinas. Now Wahoo's the booker in the Carolinas, and he came up with the idea for me to break his leg. But I tried to put the figure 4 on him, and it wouldn't fit because he had those big football legs, right?
Yeah, big ass legs.
Oh my God. You know, so I said, I can't put it on. He goes, so we figured out a way. I hooked him and fell backwards like 3 or 4 different times on his ankle. And then he screamed like I broke his leg. And then we took it from there, but I couldn't get the figure 4 on him. So,
that gave rise to one of the greatest shirts ever. I broke Wahoo's leg.
yeah. And that was George Scott's idea too, or I don't know. Somebody gave me the idea to do that, and I thought, gee, that sounds queer or strange. But I did. I made some shirts up, and I broke Wahoo's leg, and now that's an iconic picture.
Do you own that quote? I broke Wahoo's leg.
I don't know, but I got a bunch of T-shirts. I don't know.
Well, I know there's a couple of sites that sell those T-shirts. The reason I'm asking.
Yeah, Chicago tees.
Yeah.
They asked me if they could. They actually asked me. I said, I don't care. Go ahead. But they sent me a box full of them, and when I go out and do autographs, I sell them they sell like hotcakes. So
yeah,
it's one of the greatest shirts of all time.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
His leg. I thought it was really silly at the time, but shows you what I know. And the wrestling fans bought into it big time.
And so after this time with stuff with Wahoo, was Flair using the figure 4 yet?
I think he was. Yeah, he was a world champion then. And they tried to keep me from using it, but I used it anyway. So,
right. I'm just curious about how if there was a couple different people.
I think Flair started using it in 1973 or 74 when I left Carolina, because Jack and I were using a figure 4. When I left Carolina, Flair started getting his push, and that's when Flair started using a figure 4.
Really? Well, I didn't use mine until 1979. So I know when I first came back in, they didn't want me to use it, but I used it anyway. And so they go, oh, what the fuck? Just let him use it.
Yeah.
So, but when I did the
now it's a damn high spot, Greg.
Yeah. What a shame, right? A high spot. But I really had that thing over in New York big time. I mean, every time I'd go to put the hold on, I came up with putting a spinning toe hold on first, and the build up to it, and the people would start screaming. Then I put the hold on, and it was great for me. Fantastic.
And did you work with, was Vince Jr. around any during that? He was doing some commentary up for Vince Sr., wasn't he? But he wasn't part of the office, was he?
I think he was always part of the office, but he was just okay. He was the announcer. He did all the announcing. He did the promos, and then when we went out and wrestled on the TV, he was the announcer for that. So he was mainly an announcer. But Vince eventually, Vince passed away. He had some horrible disease, and he signed everything over to Vince, and then the other owners was Arnold Skolin and Gorilla Monsoon, right? They had small percentages, and then Vince bought them out, but they still kept them on. But he bought, so he was sole control. And when we went into WrestleMania, Vince was the boss, and he didn't do any more announcing. I think he did a little bit. He did some, like Saturday Night's Main Event. He did them with Jesse Ventura. They did all those. But it became Gorilla Monsoon and Mean Gene Okerlund on the mic. And then, so that being said, then Vince started pushing his television all over the place. Vince Sr. would have done this, but Vince went to Texas, he went to California, went to Minnesota, everywhere, Kansas City. He sent that television tape everywhere. He put it on Channel 9 in Los Angeles, and he paid for all this time, But he had some kind of deal with the television people that after a while, after he showed how good his ratings were, then they didn't charge him anything. In fact,
Right.
yeah, so he had that. He was in every city in California, big city, Seattle, Portland, Las Vegas, everywhere, and he was everywhere, and he took over everywhere. And I remember flying out there. I just did the thing where I broke Santana's leg. And
Man, you broke Santana's leg too, so you have quite a history of breaking legs then.
yeah. So I went from Wahoo, I went up to, so that was George Scott's idea too, to break They were originally going to put, they were going to put the Intercontinental belt on Orndorff, and Orndorff was no showing. And so my dad talked Vincent, or George Scott talked Vincent to, he says, well, how about Greg? He's got the figure 4 leg lock. We'll just have him break Tito's leg. And Tito already had a bad wheel. So I went up to Canada, of all places, someplace, Brantford, Ontario, or someplace like that. And we filmed TV up there because they wanted Canadian content on the television. So I broke his leg up there. And he actually went to the hospital and he got arthroscopic surgery. I think that's what it's called. And they had cameras on him getting the operation done. That got over big time because the people understood that was for real. So I broke Tito's leg. So it just kept going and going. So every place I worked with Tito, and he's such a beautiful, fantastic worker. We went every place and sold out everywhere. We didn't need Hulk Hogan on the card. We didn't need anybody. I mean, we could sell it out ourselves. And it was a beautiful angle. And that angle lasted about 3 years.
Wow.
He got the belt off of me, and then we held the belt up, but it lasted about 3 years. That angle lasted.
Yeah. Greg, during that time, I mean, the territory was loaded with workhorses up there, but you had to be a workhorse. You know, the schedule is kind of famous for the schedule that you guys went through there, 90 to 110 days. Were you ever on any of those really long ass tours?
How many days did you say?
I mean,
No, you know
I
what? I think we're 3 weeks. I was on some 3-week tours. I didn't go, I was gone for 3 weeks. My wife, Julie,
Mhm.
oh my God. So I'd come home and I'd rest up for 3 days and I'd go out for a short tour, like just 4 days or something. Then I came back and rested for another 3 or 4 days. And then I was back out for 20 days again.
Mhm.
Wow.
I know
Oh,
Sheik. I know Sheik and some of those guys. Sheik used to say, "I wrestled 100 days in a row." I never knew how accurate that was.
oh, the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, God bless him too. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, we all did. We went for it went forever. 21 days in on the
And they didn't have a good schedule like that back then. You were back and forth across the country like crazy too. You zigzag back and forth, right? I mean, it wasn't you go to LA for a week and you're out there for a week. It was back and forth across the states.
exactly. It was terrible. It was like it was unbelievable how they figured that out.
Mhm.
I gotta put some air in here. Yeah, it was terrible.
And whose idea was the shin guard?
That was Vince's idea.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, I came back in and I had a meeting. I called the meeting myself because I don't know. He came. I don't know why I called the meeting. Uh, I wanted to get the Intercontinental belt back or something, but they finally kept it on Tito, and Tito ended up dropping to maybe Randy Savage or somebody. So anyway, I went up there to just more or less bitch, and he says, "Well, we need to get your figure four going again." And I go, "Well, it's going just fine." He goes, "Well, we need to sugarcoat it." So we came up together with this shin guard to make the figure four even more presentable or more deadly, I should say.
Yeah.
And so I took this baseball shin guard and I cut the knee part off and then the ankle part off, and then I just had the shin guard, and then I thought about using it so when I end up putting a figure four on somebody, I would turn it around and then put it on, and that worked out really good. I got some fabulous heat, and it gave the figure four a facelift, so to speak. So,
And then you end up with one of the craziest runs you had, which looked like a lot of fun with Honky Tonk Man with
oh,
rhythm and blues. What was it fun? Was it fun, or did you not like it? What did you think about it?
well, first of all, I blew off that. I did the thing with Ronnie Garvin, so I
Right,
worked with
right.
him. We beat the shit out of each other with a shin guard and all that stuff. So,
Ronnie could be stiff, wasn't he?
oh fuck! But I was stiff too, so we just ended
Yes,
up
you were.
beating the we ended up beating the fuck out of each other. And but I was glad that was over. We finally we did the shin guard match finale in Orlando at the SummerSlam or something where we were the top match there besides the Royal Rumble, and it was a Royal Rumble in Orlando, and we did the match, and he finally grabbed the shin guard and hit me over the head with it and beat me. So that was over. So after that, I became uh, we worked into rhythm and blues with a Honky Tonk Man. I didn't want to do that, but Jimmy Hart kept walking around. He said, "Baby, they're going to have to let you go. You got to dye your hair." And he's holding this black hair dye. Oh, fuck it. So I dyed my hair and was in, I remember we were in Phoenix, Arizona. I dyed my hair back in the dressing room and I came out with the black hair. And I got Jesse Ventura to thank for this because he said, "Hey, Vince, what do you think of?" Because I was already Honky's partner, but just with the blonde hair. He goes, "What would it be like if Valentine all of a sudden came out with black hair?" Oh, they loved that, right? So I came out with the black hair, and after that, then I went with the gimmick. I said, "Well, I'm going to get this over." So I got me a jacket, got me a guitar, act like I could sing and play a guitar, and so
Well,
that
you
worked
always
out
wanted to
good.
be a disc jockey, so
Yeah, I was an Elvis impersonator now.
yeah.
So, and it actually worked pretty good. We got us we got us on. We started working with the Bushwhackers. So WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 6 in Toronto, and that big huge stadium up there where the baseball, baseball,
Blue Jay,
whatever the name of it. Yeah,
Roger Center. Yeah,
Rogerson. Thank you so much. So it was brand new, and that's where we came out in the pink Cadillac and came out there and we did. I remember we did an interview with Steve Allen. Remember Steve Allen?
Yes.
I was so excited because I used to watch him on Tonight Show, and I thought he was really funny all the time, and he was funny. So we did an interview back in the dressing room, and then we came out and playing the guitar and came out with a pink Cadillac, and Diamond Dallas Page was driving the pink Cadillac. Nobody knew who he was. He drove that Cadillac all the way up from uh,
Florida.
Florida, yeah, in Fort Myers.
Yeah.
He had a nightclub down there, so he drove the
Yeah.
Cadillac up there, and he drove us out. Nobody knew who the hell he was yet, and we came in and we started singing the song "Hunka Hunka Honky Love," and then the Bushwhackers attacked us and ran us off. So we went out and wrestled them all over the place. So it got me some more time, you know. I was in WWE a lot longer then, so with the black hair.
And then shortly after that, you had a couple things with WCW. You had a little more run with WWE, but then you had a famous double clothesline spot with me in Texas.
Pardon me?
Well, then, shortly after that, you had a little further run in WWE, but then you had that famous double clothesline spot with me in Texas.
Yeah, where you chipped my tooth. I'm serious. I got nice teeth now, but you chipped. That was the beginning of the end for my teeth, and they had to pull the tooth out, and then they put some gimmick where I just had a partial stuck in there. But it was a
Jerry,
combination.
we're driving back after the match from San Angelo to Abilene, and I feel terrible because Johnny Valentine was there. This legend. Greg's a legend. I get to meet all these great legends, and I do something stupid like crack his tooth, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the worst. This worst. What an idiot I am. And I'm driving back to Abilene, having a few beers, and I look up and I see these bright lights just flying up to us, and I thought, is that a cop? Nobody with me even acknowledged it. It's freaking Greg. Greg's driving behind me where I'm going about 80 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, bam! It's my car. Boom! That's the first time it ever happened to me. I'm like, oh my God. I go, oh, what was that? I go, and the guys in the car just laughing. We're going 80 miles an hour with Greg Valentine behind us, hitting us in a car, driving down the highway. Beers everywhere. Guys are drinking, throwing beers out, and everybody's laughing except for me. I'm scared to death.
Yeah, we were out in the middle of nowhere. That match was in Odessa, so I guess we were going back to Amarillo or something.
Yeah, it was a road. Nobody was on it. We're just on that road, and we hadn't passed a car in 30 minutes. And all of a sudden, I look up and see these bright lights, and it's you.
Yeah.
So, Greg, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
I got my smile back.
Every time I see Greg, because I love Greg, and every time I see him, he calls me Stiffy, and I thought if
Yeah,
Greg Valentine's calling me Stiffy, something's wrong.
Wow.
you must
Exactly.
really be stiff, right?
No
That's right. Hey, I tell you what, it was so cool when your dad would come. I know it's for you, it's normal, but for me to see Johnny Valentine, he's just one of those guys when you'd see him, it's just
Yeah.
like this guy is a real legend.
Wow.
And
Right.
the guys would talk about him, like they would a legend, the old guys that were around.
Right.
And then when he would show up, I was just like, oh my God, that's Johnny Valentine. That's
That's Johnny
walking history.
Valentine.
It was so cool that your dad would
Yeah,
come.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
He loved it. Yeah.
yeah. So, Greg, what you up to nowadays? Where how can you do? I've seen you at a few shows there. Do you enjoy doing the shows or out there or what?
Where did I see you in St. Louis?
St.
Yeah.
Louis, I
Well,
believe it was.
yeah. I just did a show. I did a show in Pittsburgh, and then we did a couple small. I did Pittsburgh, then we did a couple small ones, and finished up in Erie, PA, and then that was just last weekend. So now I'm
Yeah.
next weekend I'm going to go to. I've got a show in Los Angeles, actually Long Beach. The week after that, I got one in Los Angeles at the where it is. It's Century Hilton Hotel by the LAX airport. So I got some stuff that's closer to home. And then I guess the next I'm off the entire month of July. That's okay. In
That's okay.
August, I'm going to be in. I think August. No, I'm doing the Cauliflower Alley. You coming out for that?
John is. I'm not.
Oh, you going to be here, John?
I think so, yes. I haven't got my travel yet, but I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm doing. I guess we're doing We got. They're priming me up to go out and do some comedy, some comedy, So we're going to do that, and then
Greg, I take though you never will ask me again to introduce you like I did that night in Charlotte, North Carolina. Where'd you go?
did I lose you guys?
Yeah,
You did.
we could hear you. We could hear you though.
What the fuck?
Yeah, we're in Charlotte one time, and Greg makes a mistake. They've asked me to introduce Greg, and Greg makes a mistake telling me he's got a 10-10 airplane. So you know what a wrestler does. He's gonna get up there and he's gonna talk until you're missing the airplane. I see Greg out there in the audience, man. He's getting real fidgety and everything, getting pissed off. I better cut it off before he comes up and hammers me. So I cut it off.
I think I lost you guys, man. I can still hear you, but I can't get you back.
That's all right, John. You want to wrap it up then?
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, Greg, is there anything that you want to promote or push or anything for people that are listening?
Okay,
There you are.
There you
Yay!
go.
Now I'll make it go sideways here if I get it.
Uh,
Anyway, I can't make it broad screen, but I got you back enough.
okay,
That's
got it
okay.
back.
That's worth it.
Okay, so my birthday's on September 20th, and I will actually be in Hamilton, Ontario for a big Comic Con up there. It's real big. Hamilton, Ontario, just barely across the border.
Home of the Scott brothers.
Yeah, 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 that's
and,
right.
and a bunch of others. Greg's birthday's on the 20th. Mine's on the 19th, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, and remember Mike Graham and Don Morocco, Greg, and you, me, and two or three others are all from the 19th to Jack's was the 21st.
And my dad was September 19th.
Yeah, that was my birthday. I knew it was either your birthday or your dad's birthday that we're the same. So
Right.
yeah, yeah. So happy birthday.
Yep. Hey,
Yeah.
Greg, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you want to promote? Anything else that you would like to promote or push or anything?
No, I'll be in New Jersey in November. I don't have the dates right in front of me though, but you know, I'll push it out on my own deal. I think September. No, it's November. I'll be in New Jersey. Uh, September 19th, 20th. I'm in Hamilton, Ontario. August, I'm doing 4 days out here at the Cauliflower Alley. So come and see me there.
Well, Greg, thank you.
That's
We
about
appreciate
it.
you. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, buddy. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Greg.